Hello, my name's Emma Gaines. I'm part of the Critical Care Outreach team. Today we're going to be doing a training video on non-invasive ventilation for patients with type 2 respiratory failure. We're going to be talking about what equipment we need, the importance of a prescription being in place, how to apply a mask to our patients, and reassuring our patients through this procedure. So firstly, before we even get any equipment out, we should be making sure that the non-invasive ventilation pathway is prescribed. This is currently what our prescription looks like in the trust. So always make sure that all the parameters are filled out by the senior clinician before starting, and make sure that it's got the starting pressures on there and the target pressures as well. At some point in the future, a new care plan is being developed, and this will hopefully be coming shortly to the trust, and we'll keep you updated on that. The equipment that we need is we have our Philips masks that attach to the Trilogy 202, which is the ventilator that we use here in the hospital. Before you actually open a mask up, it's important to size your patient for what mask they require. Instead of opening a full bag, it has a little, I'll show you, a little guide as to how to measure for masks, and we'll talk about that in a second. We also need the tubing for our ventilators, which comes like so. It already has a filter attached to it. You'll probably find that they come with this additional tubing here as well. That's not required, and easily you can pull it all off, but making sure that if you do pull it off, that you put the little cap on here. This part here is the exhalation port. Always bear in mind, never have that covered up or blocked, because that will prevent the patient's breathing and blocking their airways there. You can get spare filters. They come separately. They should be changed every 24 hours, so make sure that is put in place. That is good practice, because we don't want infections from our ventilators. And also they come with a T-piece nebulizer machine, and within these trilogies they do have a nebulizer setting, but you will also need a nebulizer machine as well to go along with that process. So now we're going to measure our patient so that we can make sure that we've got the complete equipment and that we've got the correct mask. So on our mannequin here, they do have a very small head, so it is going to be difficult, but you're aiming, and I'll show you on myself, you're aiming for the bridge of the nose to the little dimple, the nape of your chin here, and then wherever the arrow comes across will indicate what size. So I'm coming across a medium. So you've got small, medium, large and extra large masks that are supplied here in the hospital. If you're struggling to find extra large, you can find those on intensive care unit. So once we've got all our equipment in place, we then want to prepare our ventilator. You need a special adapter that goes into the back of the wall where the oxygen is. So I'll just show you how to change that. So this is our standard one that we use at the minute. Put your fingers either side and push in. So as you can see, that just pushes down and it'll release our oxygen cylinder. This is the one now that we need. So you have just a separate one here. So if your patient's eating and drinking, you can apply nasal oxygen, but this is where our adapter is going to go. And you just push it in, make sure it clicks to check that you've got it in correctly. Turn the oxygen port, and as you can hear there's oxygen coming out. On the back of the machines, it has the silver adapter. As you can see, there's a little nodule there, and you just line those up and it should push straight in. There's a little bit of pressure, make sure you hear the click, and that's in nice and securely. In order to, so we'll just talk a little bit about the Trilogy 202. I find it's better to set up your prescription first, out of the room, because I'll show you, when you turn it on it's quite an abrasive noise, and if you set it up first it'll have everything in place so that then you can just smoothly put the mask on and away you go. So if I was to turn it on now, this is the power button, and you can hear it's that awful sound going on. You turn it off, you press the power button and click yes. That will turn it off. So imagine you going to set your machine up and all that noise is blaring out, your patient's going to be wondering what on earth are they going to be doing to me. So an easier way to set it up, so outside, I would do this outside of the room, you can do it inside as well, but a little technique is you click on the down arrow and the alarm button, press them together, and it brings up the screen, and as you can see it says set up. So on the side of our machines we have a little cheat sheet, or just so that it's easier for us to look at all the parameters and settings. So as well, when you're looking at your machine, make sure you've got the battery light on. It'll be illuminated green. Make sure it's plugged in to the back of the wall at all times. Here we have an internal battery that gives us and allows us more time, that if you have to unplug your machine and do transfers, for example from the emergency department to another ward, that allows you time and gives you that extra security that your machine's not going to turn off. The adapter for the plug is here, and this is where you attach your piping, your tubing, which we'll go through. So to talk about our setups, we've got our 2 mode buttons and our scroll up and down buttons. We want to go into settings and alarms. So click on settings and alarms and press where it says the select in the green box, select. So this has now taken us into our settings and alarms. And running alongside here, so for example at the top you've got dual prescription feature, it says this feature should be turned off. If we look, it is turned off, so we know that's correct. If you wanted to turn it on, not that we're going to, you would click the modify button, and that moves it across here to where it says off. And then the up and down buttons will move the prescription. But in this case, we want it off. Always click OK after you've done an order. The mode, this is where we're going to set our mode, and if you click modify, it scrolls across. If you scroll down, it goes through lots of other different pressures and settings, and this is what this machine can do. It can do all these different pressures. We've got a patient that's in type 2 respiratory failure, which means they need 2 different pressures. So we are going to go to the ST segment, which stands for spontaneous time. It is otherwise known as BiPAP, but the mode on here is ST. Once you've clicked on ST, again, always click OK. If you don't click OK, it'll jump to the previous prescription. So when you set it up, it'll start off on the wrong pressure. So always click OK. And then we just work down, again, looking and making sure that they correspond with what's on here. So the other 2 main components that we're going to concentrate on is IPAP. So currently this is reading 12 centimetres of water. And on your little chart here, it says IPAP starting pressure should be set at 10 initially to enable the patient to get used to the feel of it. IPAP should then be titrated up to 20 within 1 hour if the patient will tolerate. So say for example we're just starting the patient, we want to start them on 10, make sure you're on IPAP, we want to modify, it'll bring it across, and then move it down to 10 centimetres of water. Remember to click OK. Then EPAP, again, on here, it tells you to start at 5. It can be titrated up to 8, but that's the discussion of the senior clinician to make. But again, if you did want to modify it, you go onto EPAP, click modify, and use the up and down buttons. Click OK. Then we've got lots of other things, breath rate, inspiratory time. Again, it's got the pressures on here of what they should be set at. Oxygen is another one that we're going to be quite dependent upon, and we're going to move up and down depending on what our patient's target saturations are. And if you want to modify, just the same as before, click modify and move the arrows up and down and click OK. You've got trigger time, rise time, ramp time. That's the nebulizer machine that we talked about earlier. If you wanted that on, it's actually saying now that it's enabled, but if you wanted it off or on, you would just scroll up and down. Circuit disconnect alarm, so it's got all your alarms at the bottom. If it's flashing circuit disconnect alarm, it's usually because the mask's not fitted correctly, or the patient may have moved the mask. So always respond to your alarms and just make sure that there's nothing untoward going on. Apnea alarm, again, it'll tell you that should be set at 10 seconds. So if you wanted to change that up to 10 and click OK. So always make sure that these correspond with your cheat sheet. So that is so we've set all that up. So we're going to click finish and it'll say activate ST mode. Well, we want it in BiPAP mode, so yes. And it'll take you back to that. And just exit the screen and then that turns it off. So you've prepped all that, that's all ready. So now we're going to go to our patient. So you're going to go to your patient, always remember, introduce yourself, explain what you're doing, how it might potentially feel and the importance of why we're doing it, and that you're going to there help support them throughout. The masks come in this plastic wallet here, and it will tell you the size of the mask just on the front, and here we have a small, and also on the bags it tells you the size as well, so you just find the bag that's most appropriate for what you need. On the back here it has a little ball, and on the headset it's got a little anchor there, and you just push that on and make sure it's clipped on. It also has a white button on the top here, and if anything with the ventilators, we do get a lot of patients with pressure damage, and that's where they feel the tightness here. So make sure that they do have a protective dressing on the bridge of the nose, but also you can relieve the pressure by pressing that white button, and that'll move your mask up and down so that you're providing comfort for the patient. When it comes to applying a mask, it's good practice to always have 2 people. You just get a better fit. There's just me for this training video, but I recommend that when you're doing it that you have 2 people to help fit the mask. So when you're putting the mask on, you're going for the bridge of the nose. Again, our mannequin's just a bit small, but you're aiming for the little ridge on the chin. Pull the headset back. The 2 top ones are held in with Velcro, and the bottom ones are white clips, and they just sit on the side. So you're looking for a good seal. You don't want it too tight, where obviously you're causing pressure damage. I find that usually if you can just fit your fingers and you've got some resistance at the side, that's usually a good fit. And again, you don't want it really slack. But for the top ones, this is why it's better with 2. You would have a person either side and you would pull together or release together depending on where your pressures were. So hopefully we've got a good seal and that's nice and comfortable on the mask. For our tubing, The filter end goes to the machine, and this one goes to our mask. Again, making sure your clip's on and you've got the exhalation point unblocked. So now, because we've already previously set our settings in the machine, we're now just good to go. So you just turn the power button on and that will instantly start the machine. It'll probably start alarming because the mask is too small, and it'll probably flash up circuit disconnect, which it has here. So that's a really common alarm that comes up, and we would just silence it, reposition the mask to make sure that we can get a good seal. And you're aiming for a leak less than 50 really. If it's less than 20, your mask's probably going to be too tight, and if it's more than 50, it's probably going to be too slack, so you're aiming for thereabouts. To turn the machine off, you power the button and press yes. So, after an hour of you titrating those pressures up to what's being prescribed and what the doctor would like, and as long as the patient's tolerating it, after that hour they need a repeat blood gas, and that's really important that that gets done and not forgotten, because that's going to determine whether we need to change our parameters for our patient. You can, the medics, the ACPs, outreach nurses, they can all assist you in this. And that's the end of my video. If you need any assistance, just contact Critical Care Outreach.